الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين بعد. So inshallah we'll wait for them to kind of get everything up and ready. What I'm going to do today, before I continue with the natural sequence of the story of his life, alayhi salatu wasalam, specifically now we've talked about the bi'tha, the moment of revelation, the moment when Jibreel alayhi salam brought the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, the first few words, and then taught him how to pray, and then continued to teach him a few more surahs of the Quran. And I talked about Surah Al-Alaq and the importance of learning, and how the beginning, this first surah talks about compatibility with Islam, the traits and the characteristics that you need in order to be compatible with the deen to begin with. And then the other surahs would continue. And I want to show you, I'm going to show you today these surahs, what they actually talk about, not to bore you, but to explain, to make it a bit clear to you how the Prophet ﷺ actually processed these words. You see, we read these surahs, and most of the surahs that were revealed initially to the Prophet ﷺ, there are surahs that you know quite well. Most people know Al-Muzammil and Al-Muddathir and Al-Qalam. Everyone knows Al-Fatiha. These are the initial surahs that the Prophet ﷺ received. We read them, we don't think about them, but I want to give you an example of how these surahs talked about issues and topics of extreme importance, very profound, and how he processed this ﷺ within the first couple of months. You see, after these 5 surahs, Wahi stopped coming. For 3 to 4 months, Jibreel ﷺ stopped showing up. And it caused him, of course, a problem that I'll talk about. And the reason that he stopped showing up, it gave the Prophet ﷺ time to do 2 things. Time to come up with a plan. He had to come up with his plan. How was he going to spread this message? How is he going to work? Where is he going to begin? Who is he going to begin with? What is it going to look like? And he had to learn how to study the Quran. If you read the Quran, you read it superficially, and you don't take time to reflect or contemplate or think or try, and then try to apply what you're learning on yourself, rather than seeing how this could be applied on people, which is never the point. You don't look at the Quran imagining how the Quran could be applied on communities, and how can fix other people, how can help your children. No. You read the Quran so you can figure out how you're going to apply that upon yourself. That's the only point of the Quran. And if you read the Quran for any other reason, then you're wasting your own time. I'm sorry to say that you're wasting time. If you read the Quran with any other intention besides applying what you're reading upon yourself. And the Prophet ﷺ was given 3 to 4 months to read these 5 surahs, and they weren't complete, by the way. Like the Alaq wasn't completed until a couple of months later. The Muzammil is only the first page, the Muddathir only the first 19 verses. Al-Qalam, we think that maybe all of Qalam came at once. That's what we think. Wallahu a'lam. But he was given time so he could learn to contemplate and reflect. What about it?
You want to apply on yourself.
Sure. Exactly. So he's asking me what is the, so what about Nahi al-Ma'ruf and Nahi al-Munkar? And al-Ma'ruf and Nahi al-Munkar is a different issue. It's not really Islamic, it's more social. I talked about this before. Al-Ma'ruf and Nahi al-Munkar specifically talks about social issues. Doesn't really, if you're going to apply a religious issue, it's da'wah. They're different. Da'wah is when I'm going to give you a nasiha about an Islamic thing to do. But al-Ma'ruf and Nahi al-Munkar is about social issues. Things that are encouraged socially or discouraged socially. And anything outside society can be called da'wah. But the moment you start cross-pathing what Amr al-Ma'ruf and Nahi al-Munkar is with da'wah, that's when we begin to mess. So I'm not allowed actually to come and enforce upon you anything within Islamic law. I can come and encourage it, I can come and explain it, I can come and make it something, I can make more sense to you. I can explain it in a way where you see the sense in it. But al-Ma'ruf and Nahi al-Munkar, when I actually command good and I discourage something bad, usually these are social issues. And that's why the concept of Ma'ruf and the concept of Munkar are social issues. And we'll talk about that a bit more. And the question, I think what you're asking is, well, when do we go from just teaching ourselves to teaching others? Whenever you want. But when you read the Quran, what I'm saying is, what you should be thinking about when you're reading these verses, what you should be imagining is the effect the Quran should be having on yourself. That's what should come to mind first. And that's where you should see the effect of the Quran first, is upon yourself. And once you see it upon yourself and you actually taste the beauty of applying the Quran upon yourself, the way that you will encourage others to do the same will be different. It'll actually work. It'll actually work. The moment you ask someone to do something that you have tried that has worked for you, the way you ask for it is different than commanding someone to do something that you think is right and you think that it doesn't work the same way. It doesn't come out the same way. It doesn't actually affect people the same way. Wallahu alam. So I wanted to take a moment and actually show you these surahs and the messages that these surahs contain, if we can ever actually get this working, and show you the examples. But I'll remind you of what these surahs were. So we talked about alaq last week, and I showed you how alaq was the fundamental principle. It talked about compatibility. What we need to have in terms of characteristics to be compatible with Islam. Just to be we have to, that's what the surah talked about. In order for iqra, the concept of learning, of gathering knowledge, of critical thinking, of building a society upon science and logic rather than building it on superstition and whatever else you want to use. Then you have to be someone who is compassionate, you have to be someone who is humble, you have to be someone who is open-minded, you have to be someone who is objective, you have to be someone who unconditionally follows the truth. If any of those are taken away from you, then Islam will not serve, will not do its job with you. You're not compatible with it. The surahs after it that I pointed out, Al-Qalam, Al-Muzammil, Al-Muddathir, Al-Fatiha. This is how we think. This is what we think the sequence was of revelation to the Prophet ﷺ, as far as we can tell. Al-Qalam came and spoke about the ethical code. It talked about ethics. Talked about the importance of behavior, of conduct, of character. And you see that right at the beginning of the surah. Noon wal qalami wa ma yasturun ma anta bi ni'mati rabbika bi majnun wa inna laka la ajran ghayra mamnun wa innaka la ala khuluqin azim. And indeed, you have the best of character. He was told right off the beginning, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you have the best of character. It's almost to say that prior to your prophecy and prior to us actually telling you how to pray and how to do all the other parts of Islam, we would like to make it very clear that we chose you because you have the best of character. This is one of the reasons why we chose you, Ya Rasulullah, to be Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. It's not like you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is choosing people who have horrible character and then giving them Islam and they're going, no. They have to have that as a part of who they are. And then the surah goes ahead in the next 16 verses and it tells us 11 different traits we shouldn't have. 11 ethics, 11 characteristics that we should not carry in our lives. And as I told you last time, the Quran will often, instead of telling you what to do, will tell us what not to do. It keeps things a bit more open, a bit more easier to follow when you're told what not to do, rather than what to do. So when you go through it, فَلَا تُطِعِ الْمُكَذِّبِينَ. Do not be like those who refuse the truth. We talked about takdeeb last time. فَلَا تُطِعِ الْمُكَذِّبِينَ. Don't be like those, do not follow those, do not be similar to them, do not be amongst them. Do not be someone who refuses the truth, who refuses righteousness, who when sees what is correct, will turn away from it for personal gain or personal interest. No, be someone who follows the truth. فَلَا تُطِعِ الْمُكَذِّبِينَ وَدُّوا لَوْ تُدْهِنُوا فَيُدْهِنُونَ. Do not compromise your fundamentals. Al-idhan has nothing to do with painting, by the way. Al-idhan is for you to compromise a fundamental principle. A compromise is an important part of life. If we use it within issues that are flexible, where flexibility can be applied, but there are fundamental principles. There are ethics that you should never compromise. You should never give in. You should never sell out. وَدُّوا لَوْ تُدْهِنُ. The people of Quraysh wished you would compromise. They would wish you would just get rid of a couple of the stuff that you're teaching right now. فَيُدْهِنُونَ. And they'll compromise because they don't stand for anything anyway. They're ready to compromise. They don't care about anything. They just want you to compromise a little bit because it doesn't serve them. What you're teaching doesn't seem to serve them. Yeah, move on to the one after, yes. So this is, so go back to the Quran. So it goes down to basically ayah 16. Go, one forward. Perfect. وَدُّوا لَوْ تُدْهِنُوا فَيُدْهِنُونَ وَلَا تُطِعْ كُلَّ حَلَّافٍ. Do not lie. Hallaf is someone who takes a lot of oaths. So saying, Wallahi al-Azim, Wallahi al-Azim, and this is basically a figure of speech in Arabic, someone who lies. Maheen, someone who has no self-esteem. Hammazin, Masha'im binamim, someone who's a slanderer. Do not be a slanderer. Do not be someone who speaks about people behind their backs or will take one piece of information and send it to someone else and cause fitna. Manna'il lil khayr. Do not be someone who withholds aid. Mu'tadi, do not be someone who transgresses against the rights of others. Athim, do not be someone who is sinful. Utullin, do not be someone who is rude or disrespectful. Utull, al-ghalid, someone who doesn't know how to deal with people, doesn't know how to speak to people. Ba'da dhalika zanim, do not be someone who's lost their identity. I think I lost one, right? Yeah, the last one. إِذَا تُتْلَى عَلَيْهِ آيَاتُنَا قَالَ أَسَاطِيرُ الْأَوَّلِينَ. The last one. Someone أَنْكَانَ ذَا مَالٍ وَبَنِينَ, because he has money, because he's wealthy. He'll say, he'll mock faith and mock because he's materialistic. Don't be any of these 11 things. And if you actually take the opposite of these 11 things, and we think about them, you will find that the opposite of these 11 things is the perfect description of the character of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's the beauty of these verses. When you take the opposite of them, you find it describes him sallallahu alaihi wasallam exactly how he was. So let's take the opposites. He is someone who unconditionally followed the truth. He is someone who would never compromise his principles alayhi salatu wasalam. He is someone who never lied in his life, and he has always spoke the truth. He is someone who had very high self-esteem. High self-esteem has nothing to do with arrogance and vanity. Having high self-esteem has nothing to do with being arrogant or vain. Nothing to do with looking down on people or mistreating people. You need self-esteem. Do not misunderstand humbleness and humility to having low self-esteem. They're not the same thing. One is natural and an Islamic ethic that the Prophet ﷺ carried. The other one is pathological, and you should seek help. And you should definitely seek help. You should speak to those whom you trust if you suffer from low self-esteem. If you struggle with getting up in the morning and getting out of your bed. If you struggle with finding meaning to your life, and if you don't feel your worth, the goals that you've been giving yourself, what others are saying, you should speak to people around you and ask for help. And there's no shame in that. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. But having low self-esteem is a problem. The Prophet ﷺ was a very confident human being, very humble human being, alayhi salatu wasalam. Alayhi salatu wasalam never spoke of something that wasn't a part of his, that did not mean to him, and he was not a part of it. He would never slander alayhi salatu wasalam. Only khair came out of his mouth, alayhi salatu wasalam, when he spoke. Alayhi salatu wasalam, not only would he never withhold aid, he is someone who continues to give khair all through his life. That's what Khadija says. Isn't that what she said when he came running down the mountain last time? And he told her, I was afraid that this must be ghadab. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala must want to punish me for something. فَقَدْ كَلَّا وَاللَّهِ. No, Allah would never do that to you. And then she started to tell him, تَصِلُ الرَّحِمْ وَتُعِينُ ذَا الْحَاجَةِ وَتَحْمِلُ الْكَلِّ وَتُغِيثُ الْمَلْحُوفِ وَتُعِينُ عَلَى نَوَائِبِ الْحَقِّ. You carry the person who can't carry themselves, you carry the responsibility. You spend your money upon those who don't have it, and you offer a way out for someone who is struggling. This is what she's saying, by the way. What does that show from Khadija radiallahu anha? Does that show that she loves him, alayhi salatu wasalam? Does that show that she respects him? No. When a woman loves someone, she'll talk about what he did for her. What, you guys have never had a woman love you before? Some of you shouldn't have by now, but some of you should. She'll say what he has done for her. That's what she would say. She'd, no, Allah would never punish you. You did this for me and this. No, but she's not talking about how he loves her and how she knows that he loves her and she loves him back. She's talking about things that make her respect him. And there's a big difference between love and respect. They're not the same thing. And they're equally important in a marriage. Actually, take respect over love any day of the week and you're better off. Take respect over love. It's much more important. It's much more important. And both are very important. She showed how she respected him, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Right? He was someone who spent his life fighting for justice. He would never transgress against anyone. Alayhi salatu wasallam was sinless. People never knew a sin for him. Alayhi salatu wasallam, all of his life, extremely respectful, very, very sure of his identity, could care nothing about what money is. Alayhi salatu wasallam. We look at the opposite of these characteristics, exactly who he was, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. When you read these ayat again, go home today, read the same ayat again. And this time read them this way. Read them the way he read them, alayhi salatu wasallam. This is what he took from them. He saw all these characteristics that he'd been told not to do, and he made sure that he was living life the opposite of what he's told not to do. And he built his character, alayhi salatu wasallam, based on what he was told. Go one more forward. Let me add to you how Surah Al-Quran talks about characteristics. The first story in the Quran, right? The first story that the Prophet ﷺ ever heard. The Quran is filled with stories. It begins right after these verses. إِنَّا بَلَوْنَاهُمْ كَمَا بَلَوْنَا أَصْحَابَ الْجَنَّةِ إِذْ أَقْسَمُوا لَيَصْرِمُنَّهَا مُصْبِحِينَ وَلَا يَسْتَثْنُونَ فَطَافَ عَلَيْهَا طَائِفٌ مِّن رَّبِّكَ وَهُمْ نَائِمُونَ فَأَصْبَحَتْ كَالصَّرِيمِ فَتَنَادَوْا مُصْبِحِينَ. This surah talking about ethics tells a story. It's an ethical story. It tells us how a father, when he had money, when he was alive, he made sure that whenever he took the harvest of his gardens and of his orchards, that he gave a certain amount of that harvest to people who were in need. to the point where needy people knew the day that he would harvest his crops, and they would come and wait in line for their share, as if it was a right that they claimed from him. But it wasn't a right, it was just something that he had made a norm out of a good deed. He had turned a good deed into a tradition, into a norm. People got used to it, they would come and wait in line. And when he passed away, finally the children looked at each other and said, well, we don't have to do this anymore. He passed away. And there's 3 of us now. How about we go when we harvest a bit early? Just a bit early, so we don't have to tell people we don't want to give it to you. They don't want to be rude. They were raised by a good man. They didn't want to come and tell people, nothing for you, get lost. No, they said, you know what, we'll go harvest a couple of hours earlier in the morning. And we'll go and we'll sell the crops before they actually arrive. And then we're not there to see them, and they just come and find everything is empty, and no problems have to happen. Very smart. One of them wasn't too sure about it, telling them maybe we shouldn't do this. I don't like how this feels. So they go, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends something from the sky, and it burns. This whole thing burns. The whole orchard burns, to the point where they arrive in the middle of the night to harvest the crops, and they can't find, and they're like, we must be in the wrong place. No, this can't be the right place. We must have taken the wrong turn at wherever. So they go back and they start looking. No, this is it. And the sun comes up and it's completely burnt. It's burnt to the ground. So they go back and they ask for forgiveness. قالوا سبحان ربنا إنا كنا ظالمين يا ويلنا إنا كنا طاغين. Subhanallah, we were wrong. We should have done that. And they lost their religion. And it's just one message in this whole story. Don't break a good habit. When you inherit good ethics, don't lose them. You see, when you think about it, they inherited a good deed from their father. Their father had built something good. It wasn't the orchard that their father built. It was this good deed that he built. They didn't inherit the orchard. They inherited this good deed. Are you understanding what I'm trying to say? This is what the surah is teaching. This is what the ayah, this is what he's thought about, alayhi salatu wasalam, for 3 to 4 months. He learned to read the Quran this way. I cannot emphasize the importance of you starting to look at the Quran in this form. They had to learn that we did not inherit the orchard and all the crops. We inherited this good deed from him. And the moment that we got rid of it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took away the other part, because the other part wasn't really inheritance to begin with for us. And they went back and said, no, and they went back to be better people again, even though they didn't have the orchard anymore. But they went back to at least to understand that this is what we inherit from you. We inherited, ya jama'ah, as Muslims, you inherited a way of life. You inherited ethics. It's hurtful when I see Muslim brothers and sisters at young ages throwing away their inheritance. They don't care about their own morals and ethics and characteristics anymore. Their character has changed because they don't understand that's what you inherit from your parents. It's not the color of your skin, the way you look. What you inherit is this. And these 3 young men understood it the hard way. They were taught the lesson the difficult way because they lost everything. And they have to start from scratch again. In the same surah, there's an ayah that goes like, أَفَنَجْعَلُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ كَالْمُجْرِمِينَ. Do you make a Muslim like a thief or like a criminal? The word mujrim in Arabic means someone who does not follow the laws of ethics. That's really what it means. And then later on it was used legally for someone who breaks the law. And actually, if you mean by the law of Islam, then mujrim is someone who breaks that law. That's all it is. It doesn't say أَفَنَجْعَلُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ كَالْكَافِرِينَ. Because you would think that the opposite of Muslim is a kafir, or the opposite of a Muslim is a mushrik. No, the surah is saying the opposite of a Muslim is someone who has no law, who follows no law. This is what he's being taught, alayhi salatu wasalam, early on in Islam. Coming to the last verse of the surah, I'm just giving you an example of how this surah taught ethics. Of course, he followed them, alayhi salatu wasalam, reinforced it for him, but it taught the Sahaba, because I'm telling you names now. Today I'll tell you a few names of people who accepted this early on, who really took this in, and it changed who they were, and made them the people that we talk about 1400 years later. At the end of the surah it says, وَإِن يَكَادُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لَيُزْلِقُونَكَ بِأَبْصَارِهِمْ لَمَّا سَمِعُوا الذِّكْرَ وَيَقُولُونَ إِنَّهُ لَمَجْنُونَ. The disbelievers were so jealous and so hateful of you that they would try to make you slip with their eyesight. What does that mean? It's a figure of speech in Arabic. You want someone to slip up so badly. You want them to make a mistake. If you're jealous of someone, you don't like them to be successful. You don't want people to like them. You don't want them to do well. They were so jealous and hateful towards the Prophet. They wished he would just slip up once. They wanted him to make a mistake. They wanted him to lie once, to do something wrong. to have some character stain so that they could use it and say, see, look at this prophet who walks around acting like he's perfect. Perfect, look what he's said, look what he's done. But they couldn't find anything. And they would try with their eyesight. When you know how they say, Ayn al-Hasad, you look at someone, you stare at something long enough, you can, yeah. So that's what the ayah is saying, that the mushrikeen would stare at the Prophet hoping that they could make him just slip up. But he wouldn't. He wouldn't, so what did they say? وَيَقُولُونَ إِنَّهُ لَمَجْنُونَ, insane. Because insanity is not a sin. It's not a sin. You didn't do anything wrong if you're insane. So the best thing, the closest they could come to saying something negative about him is insane. But they were waiting for him. Just make one mistake. Just make one mistake. So we can stain Islam forever. Isn't that exactly what happens every day? When you stand up as a Muslim, they're waiting for you to make a mistake. Because you stand as a Muslim with Islam behind you. You protect it with yourself, with your being, with your life, with your existence, with your character. People wait for you to make a mistake. Muslims wait for you, non-Muslims wait for you, enemies and friends, everyone does. It's just the bad part of human nature. Waiting for you to slip up. So they don't have to say anything bad about you anymore. They get to stain whatever it is you claim you stand for. They get to speak negatively about whatever you claim you stand for. So every time you behave, every time you walk around trying to hold your character or maintain your ethics, remind yourself, you're not just doing it for you. You protect something behind you. You protect the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet ﷺ, all would have taken just one slip, just one mistake. I don't know how he did it. Right? Whenever someone runs for presidency, they go and look at every single email, every single website they've ever accessed in their lives. Anything, they will look at pictures that go maybe until they were 15 years old, trying to find some garbage, something to stain their character. You see, it happens here, it happens everywhere. You don't think they searched for mistakes for him, alayhi salatu wasalam? They did, but they couldn't find anything. And they couldn't make things up. Back then it was different. You couldn't make things up. You had to have witnesses for what you're going to say. And they just couldn't. So they said Majnoon. But they so wanted him to make a mistake. This is what the surah says. This is Surah Al-Qalam. Talked about the ethics. Move on to the one after it. The second one after that, or the third one, sorry, because we talked about Alaq, there's Qalam. Go after. It's Surah Al-Muzammil. Surah Al-Muzammil, the first 19 verses were all revealed all at once. So if you go to Al-Muzammil, you find a page and a half. The half is one ayah that was revealed way later, meaning a couple of years later. But that first page was all revealed within the first couple of days of his prophecy, alayhi salatu wasalam. And this one here, I just highlighted a bit. Surah Al-Muzammil talks about your spiritual needs. In order for you to be able to continue to be a Muslim, to carry this message, to do your job, there has to be something in it for you. You have to have your fuel. It's like you need your nourishment. You need some support. What support do you need, Ya Rasulullah, to be able to carry this? The support you're going to need is spiritual. It's spiritual. We say you need your food, you need your sleep. This surah says you need your prayer. This is what you need, Ya Rasulullah. Look at the commands he's given. Ya ayyuhal muzammil. Al-muzammil means al-mutazammil, someone who put on a cloak, or someone who put on a blanket. ما تزمل به الإنسان ما كان ملاصقا لجسده. Whatever you put on as tazammul, it's touching your body, it's very close. وما تدثر به الإنسان, المدثر التدثر is what you wear on the outside. So it's very symbolic. This surah talks about your spiritual needs, something that's very personal. Al-Muddathir will talk about how you're going to appear to other people, the appearance we're going to look like on the outside. And look at the commands. قُمِ اللَّيْلَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا talks about قِيَامِ اللَّيْلِ. ورتل القرآن ترتيلا واذكر اسم ربك تبتل إليه اتخذه وكيلا اصبر اهجرهم هجرا جميلا ذرني والمكذبين أولي النعمة. These are the commands in this surah. Move on to the one after it. Here's the breakdown. قُمِ اللَّيْلَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا, that's your salah, that's your prayer. He was actually commanded to pray all night. If not all night, maybe half of it. If not half of it, a bit less or a bit more. But something like that, and that was a specific command to him, alayhi salatu wasalam. You don't have to do that. But this command of prayer was for his own sake. It was for his own benefit, alayhi salatu wasalam. It wasn't an additional burden upon what he was asked to do. He needed this. If he didn't stand between the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in full khushu', in closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how is he going to get up the next morning and go deal with all the difficulties and hardships he's going to find when he's talking to people? Impossible. See, this is the point that we're missing. Wallahi, this is the point that we're missing. If you're wondering where the gap is, here's the gap. Here it is. You see, salah is supposed to be something that helps you move along. It's not supposed to be an extra burden. It's supposed to be there to make the burden of spreading the message of Islam easier, more simple, something you can carry. That's what salah is there for. It's there to aid you. Here, it's a tool to help you out. To us, it's just another burden. Just something more to carry. Just another difficulty amongst difficulties that we have. He gave us a tool to make our lives easier. We turned it into something that makes our life more difficult, and that's where the gap lies. It's really just, wallahi, it's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. Alayhi salatu wasalam would pray, Qiyam al-Layl, would pray, and he would find his satisfaction, his happiness within prayer. He wasn't alone in this, alayhi salatu wasalam. The Sahaba felt the same way about it. It's impossible to pray half a night or every night for 15 years or 20 years if that wasn't the case. It's impossible. You'll do it for a night, 2 nights, you'll burn out, you'll stop. He would do this all his life, alayhi salatu wasalam. He would tell Bilal, Arihna biha ya Bilal. Offer me some peace of mind, ya Bilal, and make iqamah. So I can stand there for a moment and enjoy my existence just for 10 minutes. Just to get rid of all the problems and all the difficulties and issues and all my fears and hopes and complications, and let me just exist for a moment in peace. Let me refuel, let me regenerate, let me charge my battery. Bilal, just say, make iqamah, and they would stand there and they would pray. Prayer is a tool that's supposed to help you in your life, make you a stronger person, offer you peace of mind, offer you clarity, offer you inner strength. It's not supposed to be an extra burden, but we turned it into an extra burden, so it's hard to be Muslim now. Because what's there to help you has become something there to make your life difficult. And we did it to ourselves. Meaning we did this to ourselves. It's not supposed to be like that. But we choose to marathon pray when we're alone. We choose to see if we can break the word record in 35 seconds to get to rak'ah. And we make that choice. We made it. It's not there, but it's not how it's supposed to be. We've chosen to read Al-Kawthar and Qul Ahad every single prayer. We've chosen never to think of Surah Al-Fatiha. We've chosen never to think of a word we say in prayer at all. That's a choice, that's a conscious one that we have made. And then we have to live with the consequences of it. But Surah Al-Muzammil explains it. Ya Rasulullah, you need your prayer. Pray so that you can. Why? Because right after, go on back. Because right after he said that to him, look at ayah number 5. Just after he told him to pray and rattil al-Quran and recite the Quran, he told, Inna sanulqi alayka qawlan thaqila. I'm going to just bestow upon you a very heavy message. Carrying this message is going to be extremely difficult. It's extremely heavy, and it still is. But inshallah, with the fuel and strength of prayer, of salah, of reciting Quran, you'll carry it. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. It's not here is a heavy message, and on top of it, here's salah to even make it heavier. But we did that. That was us. That was us. That's not Islam. That was us. We made that mistake. We've been Muslim for 20 years and 30 years and 40 years and 50 years, and we still don't enjoy it. And we still don't know how to perform salah and enjoy what we're doing, and find peace and find serenity and find tranquility and find closeness and khushu'. So you go on, go back. وَاذْكُرِ اسْمَ رَبِّكَ, invocation. After that, وَتَبَتَّلْ إِلَيْهِ تَبْتِيلًا, closeness, closeness, what we call khushu'. التَّبَتُّل is for you to be in a state in oneness with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not literal oneness with Allah, obviously, but meaning there's only you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You don't visualize, you don't see, you don't feel the existence of anyone else. You only understand, you only comprehend your humble existence and the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everyone else means nothing to you at that moment. That's tabattul. You're in full sincerity, full khushu'. رب المشرق والمغرب لا إله إلا هو فاتخذه وكيلا. Tawakkul, another Islamic tool, another spiritual tool. Tawakkul, very important for you to depend in your heart upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do your best and accept consequences. Can you do that in your life? That's what you do. Tawakkul is very simple. You do your God-given best. You exhaust every resource to achieve something. In your heart, you know that the results only come through the will of Allah, and you accept whatever the results are. Good or bad, you're okay with them, you have no problem. Tawakkul is a spiritual tool to help you. This helps you move forward. وَاصْبِرْ عَلَى مَا يَقُولُ. This is personal perseverance. People harm you, people say something to you that hurts you. Personal perseverance. Learn to calm yourself, learn to be patient. وَهَجُرْهُمْ هَجْرًا جَمِيلًا. هَجْرًا جَمِيلًا means Remove negative influences from your life. Someone who seeks you, this is the spiritual food that the surah gives you. Don't take the last two because they work with the current guidelines of, no, take the whole thing. All of this is what the surah is teaching. Remove the negative influences. Someone who continues to pull you down, tell you what you're doing doesn't work, and tell you that you're wrong even though you know you're doing something khayr, remove them. Hajran jamila, in a nice way. Just walk away, take a step backwards. I get questions about how do I do this and how do I fix that? 99% of the answers will be, who are your friends? Show me your friends. You won't show me your friends because you know they're not good friends. And I'll tell you then all you need to do is just take a step backwards. Just a step backwards, all you do. Just one step backwards. You don't curse them out, you don't mistreat them, you just take a step back. You don't have to see them every day, you don't have to answer every text, you can be busy. You can be busy. You do it all the time. We all do it all the time. We're very selective in whom and when we talk to people. Just be selective so that you're not, so you don't have negative influences. وَذَرْنِي وَالْمُكَذِّبِينَ أُولِي النَّعْمَةِ. Regarding those who have disbelieved in you and they're wealthy and they're strong, ignore these distractions. Ignore distractions. When you're being distracted from the message that you're supposed to give, ignore them. This is spiritual advice Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the Prophet ﷺ. This is for him. This is so he can build himself. This is so he can actually do his job. You need to pray. You need to recite the Quran. You need to invocate Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You need to have khushu' and closeness. You need to have personal perseverance. You're supposed to ignore distractions. You're supposed to remove negative influences. This is what the surah speaks. Go back and read the surah again. That's all it tells. Just give the Prophet ﷺ small pieces of advice. He does not give the same pieces of advice in Surah Al-Qalam or in Surah Al-Muddathir. They're very different pieces of advice given. Each one is different. Even though we feel the Quran is saying the same thing, but it's not. Each surah is saying something very different than the other if you just read it. It took time. Move on to the one after. No. After that was Surah Al-Muddathir. Wallahu a'lam, it's only the first 8 verses. Some people say it went down to the 17th. I don't know. No one really knows. But let's take just the first 8. Ya ayyuhal muddathir. قم فأنذر وربك فكبر وثيابك فطهر والرجز فاهجر ولا تمنن تستكثر ولربك فاصبر. He was given six different commands. Move forward. Very simple. Number 1, قم فأنذر. قم. The word قم itself is in both verses, in both surahs, right? It's a common denominator in both surahs. قم. You'll find the word qiyam everywhere in the Quran. Everywhere. It's like a secret. It's a code in the Quran somewhere. Because it means take a stance. It doesn't mean to stand up. It does not mean to stand up. To stand up is waqafa, wuquf. You say wuquf, people stand up. Qiyam has a completely different meaning in the Arabic language. It means to take a stance, not to stand. Or to stand for something is a figurative meaning for standing. It's the same mistake we made when we understood the word iqra. When I talked about iqra, to read written text. No, that's tilawa. That's reciting. Read means to figuratively read. To understand, to comprehend, to gather knowledge. Qiyam has the same meaning. In Arabic, it doesn't mean to stand up. Waqafa means to stand up. Sometimes it can mean to stand up. But in general, it's a figurative meaning of taking a stance. Standing for something. You need to stand for something, Ya Rasulullah. You're going to stand for this message. That's what you're going to stand for. You're going to be different. When you stand for something, what happens? What happens the moment you stand for something? You make enemies. And people don't like it. People who stand for nothing, there's nothing to pick at. They stand for nothing. I mean, you can't hurt them. There's nothing you can do that can bother them in any way because they don't stand for anything. The moment you stand for something, no matter what it is, there's only going to be someone who's going to be pushing the opposite direction. Take a stance. It takes courage to take a stance. It takes courage. You have to be brave. It's not easy. It's difficult because you're going to be scrutinized. You're going to have to put up with difficulties and hardships and people, poking at you and asking questions and pushing you the opposite way. It's not easy to take a stance. It takes bravery and courage. And he did, alayhi salatu wasalam. Boom, it's all through the Quran. وَرَبَطْنَا, we talked about Surah Al-Kahf, right? وَرَبَطْنَا عَلَى قُلُوبِهِمْ إِذْ قَامُوا. What, they stood? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala strengthened their hearts when they stood? No, when they took a stance. That's what, in the Quran is filled with it. I can't get it. There's an endless number of examples. That's why salah is not saying, he doesn't tell you salli, he says aqim as-salah. It's from the same word, same root, same idea. You're taking a stance here. You understand the world in a certain way. And you have certain goals for the world you live in. And that's why you do this. فَأَنذِرْ, spread the message. وَرَبَّكَ فَكَبِّرْ, hold your Lord's commands in the highest regards. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands, all the halal and haram, you take very seriously. وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ. Make sure that you maintain your cleanliness, inside and outside. Clothing, وَثِيَابَكَ, what you dress. Your appearance matters, the way you look matters. Even the way that you appear to people is a part of the deen. وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ. You maintain your cleanliness. وَالرُّجْزَ فَهْجُرْ. You leave all sin and all filth. وَلَا تَمْنُنْ تَسْتَكْثِرْ. And when you give, you don't give hoping to someone to give you back. You offer unconditionally. وَلِرَبِّكَ فَاصْبِرْ. When you persevere, as you move forward practically with these commands, you do it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is how we understood these verses. I just want you to understand. The Prophet ﷺ took time. He recited these ayat. He thought about them, he contemplated. And he began to apply upon himself. So that the Sahaba, they were given 3 to 4 months to do this. It meant something. It changed how they viewed the world. It changed their character and their behaviors. We don't do the same. So you can't fix a problem that you don't admit. We just don't do this. We just don't behave the same way, do we? Or do we? Do we recite the Quran with this, looking for these things, trying to comprehend what he's trying to teach, and then imagining, am I doing that in my own life? Is this how I behave? Is this how I think? Or am I the standard that everything else needs to live up to? Which one is it? See, the standard that we all need to live up to is the Quran. Our character is not the standard that anything needs to live up to. It's the Quran. So they would recite alayhi salatu wasalam, would take time to read, to listen, to learn, to comprehend, and then to change. Change is what the ultimate goal is. It's making change. Move to one after. The final one. Surah Al-Fatiha. This is out of verse 5. Surah Al-Fatiha. The key. The key is what the muftah, right? Key, Fatiha. It's the opening, it's the key. All the Quran will be understood under Surah Al-Fatiha. Let me give you the 7 points of Surah Al-Fatiha. Move forward. Right. All surahs must be understood according to it. Here are the 7 points you need to know Surah Al-Fatiha. Number 1, universality. Where Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Right off the bat, it's Al-Alameen. It's not Rabb Quraysh, it's not Rabb al-Arab, it's Rabbil Alameen. He's the Lord of all, of everything that was ever created, everything that you'll ever see, everything you can imagine exists. Universality. This is the deen, the first key is universal. This applies to everyone and is there and offered to everybody. Number 1, mercy. Alhamdulillah Rabbil, the first ayah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim again. Twice in the first surah, He subhanahu wa ta'ala would use 2 names. Use them twice. Both names have the same meaning. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, He who offers general mercy. Ar-Rahman. Ar-Rahim, He who offers specific mercy and compassion. Ar-Rahman is compassion to all living things, and Rahim is compassion to those who love Him back, subhanahu wa ta'ala. You would think He would balance it out. I know I thought that at least a few times. I think maybe He balanced it out a little bit. Because some of us, ma mistahi, some of you just don't have very good conduct. Say Bismillah ar-Rahman al-Muntaqim. He is the most compassionate, and He is the one who will avenge. Just to make things a bit more, no, ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. He will speak nothing but of His compassion, subhanahu wa ta'ala. To be one of the basic concepts, the basic themes of Surah Al-Fatiha is mercy, is compassion. Number 3, service. Iyaka na'bud. Na'bud is to serve. We are here to serve. Your job here is to serve. That's what you're here to do. That's our mission. That's a part of who we are. We are servants. We are ibad. And we are here to serve. Na'bud doesn't mean worship. You can use nasta'een for worship if you want. Nasta'een is a better way anyways. Na'bud means to serve. Service is the 3rd. 4th, belonging to an ummah. You don't say Iyaka a'bud wa Iyaka asta'een Surah Al-Fatiha. You use the noon, that means plural. We serve you and only you, and we worship and seek aid from you and only you. We. Even if you're standing there praying alone, which almost makes no sense linguistically. Alone, you would say Iyaka a'bud, but no. In Al-Fatiha, you're going to read it with the noon every time. This is a surah you have to read 17 times a day, by the way. No other surah is given that in the Quran. There is no surah that is fard for you to recite. You understand what I'm trying to say? The Quran is encouraged that you recite it. But there's no surah that is fard. You have to read it. You have to read the surah or you're in trouble. Except this one. And it's not to be read once or twice. You have to do this 17 times a day. You pray on average 150,000 prayers in a lifetime. Multiply that by 17. I don't know, I'm not good at math. Maybe 2 million times or something. So, I don't know, maybe 2.5 million. I'm not good at math. Something like that. You have to read this sort of, that's a crazy number. That's a huge number to say something, to repeat, to repetitively say the same thing every day. One of two things happens when you say the same thing every day this number of times. Either it becomes a part of who you are, or it becomes meaningless. Astaghfirullah. Are you understanding the problem? When you say something so many times, so every single day throughout your life, one of two things will happen. Either this will become a part of who you are, these themes will represent your life, everything in your life will fall under one of these 7 things, or it will become completely meaningless. It will mean nothing to you. Alright. The oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The praiseworthy. Iyaka na'budu, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Meaning, praise is worthy to Him. He's the only one who is praiseworthy, subhanAllah, no one else. Guidance. Ihdina. We ask for guidance all the time. We continuously ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us more. There is no state or no moment in your life where you have achieved full guidance. There's no moment where you can say, I have all the guidance. No, you always need more guidance. There's no end. It's an infinity. It's an issue of infinity. Meaning you can always be closer to Allah. That's why He's Allah. There's no point where you're as close as you can be. You can always be closer. Logically, it makes no sense because we're talking about God subhanahu wa ta'ala. It does. Because there's no point where you're as close as you'll ever be to Him. You can always be closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the opposite applies. You can always be farther away. You can always be closer. You can always be guided more. You say this every day in your prayer 17 times. Ihdina as-sirata. Ihdina, guide me, guide me, guide me. I want to be guided. I need to know what the next step is going to be. I need to be a better person. I want to be a better person. Guide me to be the best I can be. You ask for this every day. So either it becomes a part of who we are, we're continuously looking for guidance, or it becomes meaningless. And the last point is integrity. غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ. We don't want to be either parts. We don't want to lose our identity of who we are. You know, we still hold on to it. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. To walk the path of those who walked it before us. These are the 7 themes of Surah Al-Fatiha. This is what he learned, alayhi salatu wasalam. That's the whole point of this. I didn't have to go through any of these, wallahi. I could have easily just started with the stories. But I think it's such a waste that you end up going through the seerah not really understanding how he dealt with the Quran, how he really dealt with it, how he read these ayat and they made sense. He understood and he began to practice and things start to click and personalities start to improve and characteristics start to get better and people start to rise. As a Muslim, you should be getting closer to Allah every day. Every day you should be becoming a better person just by merely just being a Muslim. Just being that on its own means you should be getting closer to Allah every day, because every day you pray and you ask for guidance and you revise your mistakes. That's how you live. Unless that's not how we live. And if we don't, I don't understand what we're doing then. Because this is what he was taught, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right off the bat. I'm not telling you surahs he was taught 10 years into his prophecy or 5. I'm telling you within the first 5 days. And I'm telling you that the Quran stopped being revealed for 3 or 4 months after this. He was let go, alayhi salatu wasalam. Move forward. I hope that was helpful. Yep. He's given a couple of months. He has to figure out a plan. What we're going to see in the seerah is going to be a repetitive theme. He has to do the planning. Jibreel will not do the planning. Why is that important? Well, what are you really hoping for when you make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? You're hoping He suggests a plan. I don't know what to do next year. What should I do? That's why we do a lot. That's why we always get this istikhara thing every day. Even though istikhara is very important, but I get this all the time. This is such a difficult request. So when I'm asked to do istikhara for someone, I don't know when this started. Historically, I still have not figured out when this began. When shuyukh started to do istikhara for other people, I'm not sure if they made money off it. If I were to actually do this, I could leave medicine and Allah, I would be very, very rich. By just taking maybe a couple of bucks for each istikhara that I do. It's very simple. It sounds like istishara anyway. It sounds like being a consultant. I just do something a little bit different. Istikhara. We don't understand what istikhara is when you have 2 equal options. When you have studied something, you have two exactly equal options. There's nothing, there's no way for you to figure out which is better than the other. And then you say, I don't know which one is better. I've looked at every single angle. They seem exactly equal. You pray 2 rak'ah, and then you make a decision and move forward, knowing that what you're saying is, I involved you, Ya Rabbi. I didn't make this decision that I can't seem to. Both of them seem to me equally satisfying to you, Ya Rabbi. Both of them seem to follow Islam equally. So I don't know which one would you love, Ya Rabbi, more. So I'll pray these 2 rak'ahs and make a decision. And inshallah, by that I have taken off my responsibility of not involving God. When you give me 2 examples or 2 issues where one is correct and one is obviously incorrect, there's no istikhara in it. There's no istikhara in something that is correct and incorrect, something that has haram in it, something that does not have haram. There's no istikhara there. You just don't do the haram thing. What are you asking? They have to be equal. Got to be the same. You look at every angle, every Islamic ethical angle you could possibly look at, every legal angle, and they're the same. Then you do istikhara. Just as a side rant, it has nothing to do with this. The Prophet ﷺ had to plan things out. We don't like planning. We want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to tell us what to do. He didn't do it for Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and I'm telling you right now, he's not going to do it for you either. He didn't do it for him. Jibreel will come time and time again to the Prophet in the most difficult moments. No plan. No plan at all. Nothing. And I can give you at least the day of Khandaq, when they dug the trench, no plan. Uhud, they fought, they didn't know what to do anymore. Stay in, stay out. Nothing, no plan. The Prophet ﷺ can't return back to Mecca after the people of Ta'if threw him out. Jibreel came to him. And the angel of the mountains told him, Ya Rasulullah, we saw what they did to you. Give me the command and I'll crumble the mountains on top of Thaqif and Hawazin and I'll destroy them. He said no. And Jibreel left. No plan. No solutions, nothing. You figure it out. That's your job. What do you think your job is? If I'm going to give you the plan and the way to do things, then what is your job? What are you going to do? You're just going to do it? Just going to follow instructions, that's it? No, you have to figure it out. Figure it out. So you have to figure it out, alayhi salatu wasalam. You have to come up with a plan. So every plan I tell you is his, alayhi salatu wasalam. The only time he changed the plan, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came and told him, change, don't do that, do something else. And he only did that if what was going to happen next was going to jeopardize his life, alayhi salatu wasalam. He was given certain commands at certain moments to save his own life. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wrote for him a certain time to live. So he wouldn't die. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Now you're wondering, well, how does Quraysh know? He hasn't made this. No, Quraysh knew. I told you last time. The moment he said, I am prophet, the moment Waraqah bin Nawfal explained to him, and Jibreel told him he is Rasulullah, and he understood he was Rasulullah, all of Quraysh knew. He just didn't make it a public issue yet. He hadn't made it a public, he didn't stood up on the mountain of Safa and said, everyone needs to listen to what I have to say, I'm warning you. No, he didn't do that yet. But all of Quraysh knew. And Quraysh probably at that time knew the ayat that I explained to you with their meanings more than most Muslims do. They had heard these verses, most of them had memorized these verses. They were very interested in what the Prophet ﷺ was bringing. It was so unique, it was so different. It was amazing, it was a different way of speech. A lot of them were bothered by it because he had broken every single law that Arabic literature follows, and Arabic poetry follows. He had broken every law, it's like he didn't care about anything. And everything he was saying was so beautiful in the way when you said it out loud, it was so profound in the meaning. And very rarely does that happen. Usually philosophy is boring, it's profound, but it's boring. And art is fun, it's a catchy tune, but it's meaningless. There's nothing there, it's just a tune. There's nothing, it's just a silly song. But to have both come together, it's something to be as profound as it is, as beautiful as it was, they listened. And then Jibreel stopped coming. First week, second week, third week, the Quraysh is asking all the Muslims, hey, where's, what else? Oh, yeah, you went with Muzammilina, we heard that. What was the one after it? No, you know that one too. That's it, that's all we got. So where's, isn't Jibreel, what is he, busy? What happened? So they start mocking the Prophet. Start making fun of him. And saying, your Lord gave up on you. You must be useless. Sallallahu ala Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Start saying stuff like that. You must have made it messed up. Jibreel doesn't want to talk to you anymore. You must have made a huge mistake. What did you do wrong? Alayhi salatu wasalam has the stress of planning this. He's told that you have to teach everybody about Islam. It's like he doesn't have enough stress. Now he's being mocked by Quraysh. It was the first hardship he went through as a prophet. He had been through many before. But this was the first one as a prophet. And he began to worry, alayhi salatu wasalam, a little bit. Move. So another example. These two surahs are revealed 3 or 4 months later, with 2 lessons. 2 lessons. To teach the Prophet ﷺ how to deal with hardships from now on. And to tell the Prophet ﷺ about worrying, about worrying about the future. 2 lessons, I'm giving you examples. These surahs were revealed to him ﷺ to teach lessons. He would take what was in it, he would apply it to himself, and he would continue his life with them. We've been reading Surah Al-Duha for what, 50 years? Any of you looked that long? Hey, what? When you have a hardship, they use it. They use the concepts that are in it. وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى 3 statements, move forward. The surah teaches you, remember 3 statements. Surah Al-Duha, very simple. 3 statements. When you're in difficulty, you remember 3 statements. Number 1, مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَى. Your Lord has never forgotten you. He has never neglected you, nor will He ever. That has to be a statement that is clear to you. When you go through hardship, it doesn't mean God doesn't care about you. Never ever say that to yourself. Never accept that thought come to your mind. Remember that immediately. Second statement, وَلَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى. Whatever you lose in this life and don't get, you will be given better than whatever that is يوم القيامة. Everything in the hereafter is better than everything in dunya. So don't feel sad about something you missed in dunya. You'll get a better deal يوم القيامة. وَلَسَوْفَ يُعْطِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى. And you will be satisfied يوم القيامة. In the hereafter, you're going to be satisfied. It's not like you're going to be given half a deal. Or you're going to spend your life working for the sake of Allah, and then He gives you your package Yawm al-Qiyamah, you're like, this is not enough, no, you'll be fully satisfied. To the point where no pain and no agony will ever exist in your heart ever again. You will be fully happy. Even with the difficult memories of your life, you will reconcile with them perfectly. Because you'll be so satisfied from the khayr you'll see Yawm al-Qiyamah. Remember those 3 statements every time you walk into a hardship. The second part of the surah, remember how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has helped you throughout your life. أَلَمْ يَجِدْكَ يَتِيمًا فَآوَى وَوَجَدَكَ ضَالًّا فَهَدَى وَوَجَدَكَ عَائِلًا فَأَغْنَى. He tells the Prophet, do you remember when you were an orphan? We gave you a home. You didn't have guidance and then we guided you. You were poor, we gave you wealth. Do you not have the same examples to talk about yourself? Could you not say to yourself something similar? We can all say the same about ourselves in different ways, in different words maybe, but the same thing. I was once this and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala offered me this and once this. If you're old enough to think that way, then you were once in this situation. He's offered you a way out. So He's offered you a way out before. Why are you so upset now? He offered you a way out before. He'll do it again. The third part of the surah, what you should do. What should you do? Focus on helping others. فَأَمَّا الْيَتِيمَ فَلَا تَقْهَرْ أَمَّا السَّائِلَ فَلَا تَنْهَرْ وَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. Whose pain can you elevate? Can you elevate the pain of an orphan? You can elevate this pain. Can you help someone who is misguided and help them? Can you use your wealth to help others and do that? If you're in difficulty, instead of wasting your time and feeling sorry for yourself, remember those three statements. Remember how He has served you before, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then use whatever gifts He's given you to help other people. And that's how we get through difficulties as Muslims. You're a Muslim, that's how you get through hardship. This is what you do. You don't sit around waiting for things to change. No, you immediately begin to relieve the hardship of someone else. I am in a financial hardship, but I can relieve your spiritual one. So I will relieve your spiritual hardship, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will relieve mine. That's how we do things. So the Shaykh came and told him, إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. With each ease, there's enough difficulty to get through it. Some difficulties will never end. They'll continue to the end of your life. But there'll be within that difficulty enough ease for you to get through it. You'll survive. You'll make it through. You won't lose your deen. You won't lose your iman. You won't lose your integrity. You'll hold on to who you are. إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ. The first one was specific to him, alayhi salatu wasalam. فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. He was being told, as for you, Ya Muhammad, with all your difficulties, there'll be enough ease for you to get through them. And then He made it a law. إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. This is a law, by the way. Every difficulty will have ease in it. Doesn't mean every difficulty will have ease after it. Some difficulties don't have ease after it. Some of them don't. But every difficulty within it, if you look, if you are a mu'min, you'll find the ease within it that will allow you to overcome and to continue to be who you are. It won't break you, it won't destroy you. You'll hold on to yourself. These are the lessons he's learning. I know, today I bored you. Not many stories today. I know. I cannot emphasize the importance of you reading the Quran the way we're supposed to read it. The way he recited it. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I'm giving you examples of how he took it and how it changed him. I don't like saying that because alayhi salatu wasalam was already on a level much higher than we are. But how the Sahaba took this in. How the Sahaba continued to be the people that they were. Move forward. Alright, one more. Where's the... okay, there it is. Who is the absolute first Muslim ever? Who was the absolute first person to be a Muslim? I got the question last time. Waraq bin Nawfal. So most scholars say no, because Waraqa died before Jibreel told the Prophet ﷺ, you are Rasulullah. But Waraqa knew what was going to happen. Waraqa is a mu'min. I told you last time, Waraqa is already a person of Jannah. Waraqa was a believer before the Prophet ﷺ became a prophet. To say he's the first Sahabi is a stretch. Some scholars accept that. I think it's a stretch. I think he's something beyond that. I think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him life long enough just to tell the Prophet ﷺ what he said, and then he died immediately. He died before Jibreel came and told the Prophet ﷺ, I am Jibreel and you are Rasulullah. So maybe I don't think he qualifies. I think he's in a different category. Waraq radiallahu anhu, Waraq in a completely different category. But the absolute first Muslim, of course after the Prophet ﷺ accepting the message, is Khadija. Unequivocal. This is undisputed. Khadija bint Khuwaylid bint Abd al-Uzza, ibn Abd al-Uzza was the first Muslim ever. The first person to make sujood for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala under the law of Islam after the Prophet ﷺ was Khadija. And I think there's a lot in that to learn. The first Muslim was not a man, the first Muslim was a woman. The Prophet ﷺ was the Prophet, he is the messenger. It's a different thing. Again, a different category. You can't say he's the first Muslim. Oh, and أول المسلمين, you say the first Muslim ever, you go back to Ibrahim alayhi salam, he's the first one. But the first person in our ummah, the first person to accept the message of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, Muhammad, was Khadija radiallahu anha. We talked about Khadija, a special person. We're going to continue to talk about Khadija. The next 10 years of his life alayhi salatu wasalam are going to be filled with Khadija. She's going to be everywhere. She'll be doing everything. And times with Khadija were different than times after her radiallahu anha. And then after that, we don't know the exact sequence. I don't know. It was Abu Bakr first, or Ali first, or Zayd. I don't know. But the best guess that the scholars give is the following. They say the first Muslim amongst men, amongst full adults, male adults, first Muslim of all was Khadija. Of male adults was Abu Bakr. The first Muslim of children was Ali. And the first Muslim in adolescence years was Zayd ibn Haritha. It will only be a few more days before all of his household will become Muslims. Ali sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his wife, and then all his children accept Islam. But these are the first two names. If you look at it, they're all very close to him. Zayd lives in his home, Ali lives in his home, Abu Bakr we'll talk about. Move forward. Who was Abu Bakr? I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about Abu Bakr. So Abdullah, his name is Abdullah. Right? Yeah, I know. We're used to Abu Bakr. No, his name is Abdullah. And his father Abu Quhafa, his name is Uthman. So Abdullah ibn Uthman ibn Amir ibn Amr ibn Ka'ab ibn Sa'd ibn Taym ibn Murrah. Murrah is one of the Prophet ﷺ's grandparents. So he meets with the Prophet ﷺ's lineage at Murrah. The lineage of the Prophet has Qusay ibn Kilab ibn Murrah. And Abu Bakr has Taym ibn Murrah, so he's a Taymi. So Abu Bakr is called Taymi. He's from the part of Quraysh that is Taym. Abu Bakr was the first Muslim man. Abu Bakr, like the Prophet ﷺ, never worshipped idols in his life, ever. Never believed in them, He became very close friends with him. He was his best friend ﷺ, prior to Islam. They met during their years of buying and selling. The Prophet ﷺ worked with Abu Talib and became a merchant, correct? He became a businessman. And Abu Bakr had owned a business for many years. Abu Bakr came from a wealthy family. Abu Bakr was 2 years younger than the Prophet ﷺ, but he had a head start in life. His father was a merchant before him and they owned wealth, and he had worked most of his life. He owned his own business. Abu Bakr, his father, spent a lot of time teaching him and educating him. Educating him in certain things. Abu Bakr was a scholar of history, the history of the land, and a scholar of genealogy. He knew the ansab, which is something at that time was very valuable. If you had someone who was a nasaba, who knows exactly each tribe, what their lineage is, and how they connect to other tribes, you know names and peoples, and that's a big plus. So Abu Bakr was someone who helped the Prophet ﷺ out all of his life because of the knowledge he had. He was a very famous person, Abu Bakr. His fame actually made it, it helped the Prophet ﷺ. He was a known figure. People knew Abu Bakr. He wasn't someone who was disrespected. No, he had his weight in communities and in societies everywhere. Many of the Muslims, of course, we're going to see as we move along in the next few years, you're going to see a lot of Muslims going to be persecuted, oppressed, mistreated. Not Abu Bakr. Abu Bakr was too heavy as a human being. Not heavy in weight, but figuratively speaking. His weight within society was very big. People couldn't touch him. And you can see how the Prophet ﷺ got his best friend to believe in him. I've always stopped at this point when I think about Abu Bakr. Oh my gosh, just think about this. When you look at friends, and you look at the concept of someone having a best friend, I mean, if your best friend claimed prophecy, yeah, I wonder how that would go. That'd probably be the laughing point for the next couple of months with the guys. You hear what he's doing? No, not Abu Bakr. يقول صلى الله عليه وسلم, listen to this. ما عرضت الأمر على أحد إلا وكان له فيه تردد إلا أبو بكر. Everyone I offered Islam to always had a moment of hesitation. Just a second, just to think things through. Except Abu Bakr. ما عرضت عليه الأمر حتى قال لا إله إلا الله. It's as if Abu Bakr was waiting for this all his life. One of the things that makes me, as I grew up, or made me extremely confident in who he was, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, was Abu Bakr. Who knows you more than your best friend? Someone who spends time with you daily. If Abu Bakr somehow knew on a subconscious level that Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was a unique and special person, and as if he was waiting for it. In the moment the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Ya Abu Bakr, this would happen, he said, La ilaha illallah. I'm with you, no, move. Abu Bakr actually within the next 2-3 days would bring 10 Muslims. We'll talk about that inshallah next time. Because your best friend, you probably, someone who did what the Prophet ﷺ did, probably would have lost all his best friends. And because your friends are usually there for the good times and the fun, but not for the serious stuff. Abu Bakr, it was as if he was waiting for it all his life. Just waiting for someone, or for Muhammad, the Prophet ﷺ specifically, to finally say it. And finally bring it forward. And when he did not hesitate for a moment. You see, later on, many years later, the Prophet ﷺ will stand on the minbar. He'll be 63 years old. Or 62, very at the end of his life. He's tired. He's tired, alayhi salatu wasalam. He would stand there and he would say, مَا كَانَ مِنْ أَحَدٍ مِنْكُمْ أَسْدَى إِلَيْنَا مَعْرُوفًا إِلَّا كَافَأْنَاهُ. Everyone here, everyone in this society, I would say, everyone here who has done a good deed to me, I have done many good deeds back to reward them. I've made sure that if you've done something nice to me, I go out of my way to make sure I do something nice for you. إِلَّا أَبُو بَكْرٍ ما استطعت مكافأته في الدنيا. Except Abu Bakr, I have yet to be able to reward him for what he's done for me in this dunya. فَتَرَكْتُ مُكَافَأَتَهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ. So I left it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to reward Abu Bakr. أَلَا كُلُّ خَوْخَةٍ إِلَى الْمَسْجِدِ تُسَدُّ إِلَّا خَوْخَةُ أَبِي بَكْرٍ. Every door that opened into the masjid, you see all the Sahaba, once they put up walls in the masjid towards the end, they started opening small doors. So Abu Bakr opened a door, and Umar opened, he said all the doors will be closed, but you'll leave the door of Abu Bakr open. And it was a figure of speech. And everyone has a certain extent with me in terms of closeness, except Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu wa arda. See, I love the friendship. Because you get to see him alayhi salatu wasalam as a human being. Sometimes we lose that part. We tell you these stories and you see him. So he's a guy, he's a person. And he had a best friend. And his friend's name was Abdullah ibn Uthman. AKA Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. And he was the first person to believe in him, alayhi salatu wasalam. That says something about the Prophet and about Abu Bakr that I think is worthy. You'll continue inshallah this next week. سبحانك وبحمدك لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Before you leave,